All right, welcome to Junket Theory, everybody. Today we got in the house our own local Lankan boy out there in California, making waves and writing them. He is somebody who has worked on movies like Aquaman, the upcoming Kung Fu Panda 4, X-Men Dark Phoenix. His repertoire is quite the impressive one, and I am very proud to have him here on the show tonight. Lakshika Udakandage, thank you so much for joining us.
Thank you. Thank you for inviting me. And I'm always happy to talk.
Amazing. Yeah, so I came across your work, like I was telling you before, after you won this prestigious award through DreamWorks. And I mean, I'm pretty sure you have had quite the journey, working your way up to that. So I want to go all the way back, all the way back to when you were hopefully back in Sri Lanka and when you started becoming interested in filmmaking. And today you're a technical director. Talk to me a little bit about the journey. Tell me, talk to me about your origin story. How did you get here?
Sure. Journeys, I would say like quite long, but I'm happy about it. So I think my interest in animation and visual effects, kind of like that area, started around when I was in grade 9, 10 at my school in Sri Lanka. That's around the time when I think two of the movies that I think inspired me during that time is like the first Matrix movie, and there was a animated movie called uh, Final Fantasy Spirits Within that had like human characters and really nicely rendered and nice story. So those two were like really inspirational for me. And it not just me, like we have a bunch of friends and we were talking about these things and see like how they were made, trying to find resources. But those days, like it's really hard to find anything about movies other than the movie itself. Like internet is a rare thing. Like at that time, even having a computer at home is a rare thing. So it was at that time, like we started like slowly, like
Sorry, how long ago was this? This was like early 2000s?
this is I think like 2000 2001 somewhere around that. So that's how I think I got inspired. Then like me along with like our friend circle like started finding resources. Like it was still really limited of what we can find at the time. Whatever we can get our hands on, we tried. Like and the computers are also not that powerful, so we can't do much. Like we can only do like simple things in even in 3D or in 2D. So that's how it started. So it's slowly like it took time. Like I all throughout my school days and and the time I went to University of Colombo to do my undergrad in computer science, computational physics. All throughout all that time, I was like mostly self-studying. I got what I can find. I tried what I can do and improve my skills and do things like that. Um, Tried different sides, like tried um, visual effects things, like small things. Tried animation, like fully animated things. Did like a really short movie, like 2 minute movie that's like one or two characters, to like simple interactions. Those were like really primitive things. Those like if I watch them today, like I would say, oh, this is nothing. But at that time, it was a huge thing. So that's how it started, and also during that time, like there were like in school and in the university there were like functions like you call science day, you call commerce day, things like that. And for those, I people started like asking me like, can you do like a short animation for like science day? Can you do a short animation to like, there are a few events that we do during our university years. So I ended up doing like short animations for those. Like it will be like 2 minute or 1 minute like intro videos. So those were like fun learning experiences, and doing that also like helped me to understand like the technical skills that I need to develop and things that I don't know that I need to learn. So those are like really like good examples for me. And after that, after like finishing my undergrad, I tried to see if I can join like a production house or something in Sri Lanka. And I tried talk to a few places and finally end up getting into a place called Sky Entertainers. At the time, they were doing like bunch of commercials, and luckily for me, around the same time as I joined there, they got a motion capture system, which I believe was the first ever motion capture system in Sri Lanka. And I got to like test it, like set it up, calibrate the system, manage actors, capture data, think all of that. So I was working on that one. And also like when I joined, my personal learning experience was like mostly with the software that I could find easily at the time. But the studios were working in a different set of software which didn't match what I knew. So at the time I was told like you have to learn this. So we can't like pay you to start working. You can come here without like payment as a, like a learning experience. And when you after some time, if you're good, then we can hire you as an employee. So I said like at that time I just want to learn. So I said okay, I'm fine. I can come there. So this went on for some time. I got to work on some commercials. I learned like other softwares too, and I got to work on the motion capture system. Um, so after some time, this went on for like a year and a half. After some time, my wife is also at the time. She was also in my same batch at the University of Colombo, and she got the idea of like let's see if I can go for higher studies to US. So she applied first to University at El Paso, University of Texas at El Paso. So I came with her to US as a dependent, and she started studying, and I start like I kept doing the same thing. I just like learn new things like that. And the next year, I also started looking to see if there are like animation programs that I can apply. So I pretty much found a list of like made a list of about like 25 universities and pretty much emailed all of them asking like what are your programs and whatever details I can found on their websites. I noted those down. So I shortlisted that because at the time I personally could not afford to like pay and learn at master's level. So what I was looking for is programs that has some sort of funding that I can apply for. So the list came down to about like four or five. Then I started applying for them, and on the first time, on the first year that I applied, I got admissions to the same university that I went later. But on the first year, I got the admission, but unfortunately, I didn't get any funding. So I told them like I don't have money to like afford this. So if you can please forward my admission to the next year. So they forwarded the application, and luckily on the next year, I got both the admission and a teaching a research assistant position. Luckily, that research assistant position was a motion capture research assistant position. And I'm glad that I had the past experience of like working in there. So that made me qualified for that one. So somehow I got into that, and that secured funding for me, mainly like for research assistant position. They waive your tuition fee and pay you like a small amount for your day-to-day living. So that went really nicely. Then from El Paso, Texas, I moved to Columbus, Ohio, where I spent like 3 years working on my master's in animation. Um, and by the end of that, I started applying for jobs, and job finding was not that easy. I started applying because like it's hard to get into because at the time it was kind of hard for like anyone from outside the country to get into any jobs. So I started applying, and for some time I didn't got anything at all. And at one point I was kind of like mentally down, thinking that my skill is like my level at the time wasn't enough. So at some point, I think I thought to myself like I should stop applying for jobs and maybe applying for like other training programs because my level is not up to the level that someone can hire me. So this went on for some time, and I started applying to jobs in Canada too because it for some time I got a temporary job at the university for like few months, but it wasn't like a permanent position or anything. And luckily, when I applied to MPC at Montreal, they picked up my application and like called me in and asked like, what do you want to do, things like that. And they had a job that kind of matches my qualification, like the things I knew, like bit of programming, bit of computer science, bit of visual effects, and bit of animation. So that kind of like fit their description of a job. It's pretty much the job they offered me was pretty much a pipeline TD at the FX department. So at the time, I was also really interested in like learning FX simulations, things like that. So I said, okay, let's try that. And so that's how I started working at NPC. Pretty much that within a year of like I think I worked there for an year. Within that time, I was lucky enough to work on like multiple movies because MPC is a huge company and multiple movie projects are happening at the same time. And in my role, I was supposed to help pretty much the entire department. So I got to work in multiple movies at the same time. So that was a pretty nice experience. Um, so I was there for about a year, and then I came back to US. And after a while, I got the job at DreamWorks. This is like early 2020. I think January of 2020, I joined DreamWorks. So from there onwards, I worked as a technical director on a bunch of films, and also right now finishing up like Kung Fu Panda. So that's the journey so far. Short.
It's quite the journey.
Yes, it is.
Man. I mean, no, it's really impressive to hear this story because like there are certain points that like even when I'm listening to your story, I'm thinking like, yeah, he could have dropped off at these points and like gone back, either come back to Sri Lanka or whatever. But it's I think the resilience and the need to keep working in a creative industry that kind of keeps you going, and I really love that.
Yeah, at the same time, like it's also the support, like because my wife knows like how much I love this. So she's like my backbone. Like without her, I wouldn't be here. So that support from my wife, my parents, my sister, all of them was like it's enormous. Like that support is what enabled me to like push myself and also take risks. Like if that wasn't the case, then I would be too afraid to take a risk and do something new or try something new. That I believe that support is what made me comfortable to do new things, push myself, take risks, and see what happens. So that's also like a huge part of my journey.
That's amazing. And so you were talking, your role as a technical director. Now, this is again like a blind spot for me. Like, I have no idea or no clue what a technical director does on like any movie. But your field is animation. So, talk to me a bit about what your job description entails.
Yeah. So technical director has few hats, I would say. One is like so when we like in our job description within our scope, we don't create any final pixels that you see on the screen. So artists are creating those pixels. Artists are working on actual creation. So what we do is like we stand as like the support for them. For example, like one of our responsibilities is, for example, let's say if an artist is working on some software or some scene or some shot, if something is not working properly, like the data is not coming through, the data is not getting exported, it's not the correct way to save or something like that, then we step in, we investigate like why it's not doing what it's supposed to do. Is it sometimes it's a bug in our pipeline programming, sometimes it's a hardware issue, sometimes it's a workflow issue, like like artists have done like something that should not be done during the workflow process, Oh, so what we are doing is like we are helping them so that they can focus their valuable time on actually creating stuff rather than doing like troubleshooting or like programming or something like that. So that's like one area that we work on. The other area is that when artists like work on new films or when they have new ideas, they talk to us. They say, "Okay, I have an idea. It, can we make a tool to do these things?" So then we talk with them. We try to like get the essence of that idea, and we try to make it into a tool. It can be like a separate tool that like a standalone program or something like that, or a something that's or something like some improvement of one existing tool or something that's working on and like a bigger software we add a update on top of the existing software, things like that. So that's another part of our job. And another part that we do is that for projects like upcoming projects, say like new movie starting, and there's a new look or a new feel that the movie need to take on. For that, there's a long-term plan for like development of software or development of technology. So for that, we act as like a middleman. So we talk with both the artists, and there are like separate software developers, software architects that doesn't usually interact much with the artist. So we stand as like the middleman. We facilitate communication between the parties because I personally believe like technical directors know the language of the artist and also the language of the software developer. So we bridge the gap. Sometimes we provide our own input from our own experience. Sometimes like we try to understand what the artists are looking for and translate that into what the software designers, software architects work on, and the other way too. And we enable testing, we enable collaboration, things like that. So that's another area that we fit in. So what I would like to think is like we stand between the art and the tech, something like that.
That makes a whole lot of sense, and it's really interesting because like usually on smaller scale productions like the ones that I do back home over here, I have a visual effects artist, and something crashes or whatever. He's the same person who ends up troubleshooting it. But in a bigger pipeline, I guess you can't really have someone who's working creatively inclined have to troubleshoot their own program or whatever. So it's you kind of act as a gauge, like a liaison also between tech and art. That's a really nice way of putting it, and that kind of makes sense why productions, basically like Kung Fu Panda. And pretty much everything else you worked on, they have such fast turnaround times, and I don't think you would be able to meet deadlines if it weren't for pretty much like everyone who's a part of this specific pipeline.
Yeah, I think like when it comes to like bigger studios with a lot of people, like the each person has their own responsibilities, like siloed into like their own expertise, and like instead of having more breadth, they have more depth in their specific role. So like each role then fits into like each the next one. So like like a it's a
It's very
continuous thing.
compartmentalized.
Yeah.
Right. That's interesting. So, what are what are the uh, basically with your job, since you deal with both the creative and the technical ends, which one of these two do you prefer? Which because you get problems from both sides, which ones would you rather work on and why? I think it's a very individualistic question.
I feel like I would like to work on both, like at the same time. Meaning, if it's something that more related to like artists, like artist tools, things like that. That's also something that's interesting to me because like that way I get to learn about the art. I get to learn about why this person is asking this feature to be, why this way, why this specific, why it has to work in this specific way. what does that tool mean to him or her in terms of like getting his art through. So that's a really interesting area. Like that's also like understanding the art and also the thinking process of the artist. So that gives me like things that I can learn about the art form of animation. On the technical side, it's the same thing. When you come to technical side, like there are like certain like ways that we should follow and things that we should do when we like develop new tools or something like that. And those like that way, I put myself in a place that I can gather new knowledge, like because I have to learn new things every day because it's a continuous learning process. So if I just stay one side of the track, let's say like if I say okay, I don't want to handle anything too technical, I would say like if I want to stay on only on the artistic side, then I'm gonna miss that part of like new technology, what are new things out there. It doesn't mean like I have to update constantly and I have to learn every new single thing. But having to work on that side gives me that scope, that path that I can learn. I get to try new things. I get to test new things like that. So I'd say like my preferred way is like bit of both when it comes to like art and tech. But because both side gives me things that I don't know, things that I can learn, things that I want to learn. So yeah.
Do you at any point, take a look at the, like, let's say you have a particular problem with the creative aspect of a scene, that obviously entails some technical issues as well. Do you take a look at the scene from a, like, let's say from a story standpoint, and then also decide what the most appropriate solution might be?
Most of the time, it's a combination of two. We like as technical directors, we take a look at the shot and take a look at what context is this problem in. Like, why is this problem happening? Is this in this in this specific case? Most of the time that interpretation of that part comes through the artist. Like he will explain us, okay, this is what's happening in this shot or this scene, and this is what I did, and this is what I'm getting. It's either not working as I'm expecting, or it should be working like this, and it's not showing up properly, something like that. So we get some context from the artist, but we also have a look like if we can get our hands on, okay, like what is the shot look like, what are the elements in there, what are the data in there. So we try to get that knowledge too. Having that knowledge do help us, like if we know, okay, this is what it's supposed to look like, this is how it's supposed to move, then that also gives, okay, it's supposed to move like that, but it moves like this. So that enables us to narrow down what might be going wrong. So that helps us like reducing our time on like not investigating that things that are not related, and also like makes us narrow it down to a some narrow it down to some level that we need to investigate.
Do you at any point get to read the script from the studio or not?
Uh, I think not before a like so always the script goes through like multiple iterations and things like that. We get exposed to after some level. We usually like within our like scope of work, when the production starts, that's when we get to like see um, animatics, things like that, but not from the very beginning now.
Gotcha. So it's more, it happens, I guess, like later down the pipeline. So does it all, uh, okay, you have the script. I'm just trying to gauge the production pipeline. You have the script, then probably, please feel free to correct me. You probably do the the voice recordings, and then at the same time, I guess, maybe before you have the concept art and everything happening along with the animatics. And once it's gone through a few different iterations or whatever, uh, when it comes to the technical side, when you started animating it, is that when you guys get involved?
Technical directors get involved at multiple places.
Mhm.
So what we usually get started, like when the main production start, we are like modeling start, like one of the first step excuse me, one of the first production departments to get started is modeling, on usually on most productions. So from there onwards, technical directors get involved like all the way to lighting and color correction and all of that. um, and production happens on like department wise. So we have modeling, look development, previs, animation, CFX, FX, and lighting, things like that. All of that, all of those, like any department or any step that
Sorry,
involves
what's CFX? I had seen this term a few times,
CFX is
but
called
yeah,
character effects.
gotcha.
So
Okay, okay.
they deal with like all the clothes and hair, things like that. Anything that has the characters, it's CFX. In some companies, it's called I think technical animation. Um, I think those two are the main terms that I know of. But usually, like in bigger studios, like FX and CFX are handled by separate departments. In terms of like TDs, they get involved anywhere from beginning of the main production to all the way to the ending and delivery. So that's like a huge spectrum, and multiple TDs work on multiple areas. So any given movie has like a pretty pretty good TD team that gets split out into separate departments, and some work on multiple departments. Again, because different TDs has different scopes. Some are like per department per show, and some work in multiple departments, and some work as like generalist. So yeah.
You mentioned that you did a degree in computational physics, and how has that pretty much like transferred and helped you when it comes to this role of a technical director? Because you're dealing with quite a lot of animation and almost real world physics in every scene, right? Whether it's Kung Fu Panda, Puss in Boots, or whatever. There's this sense of realism that you establish within a fantasy world. So how has that kind of helped you out?
Yeah. So that helped. I would say that more like it helped me in different ways. One way is that the way like when we were learning computer science and physics, the way we think is different than a I would say like a writer or a artist thinks. So I get to experience that way of thinking, like way of approaching problems, way of solving problems. So that helped me in my job, I think, because I have that experience, that I know that way of thinking, that helped me in my job to like narrow down issues, um, see what options I have to for the solution, and take a decision on, okay, this is what the best solution for this specific problem, and go with it. I think that is one way that I think of that helped me. uh, on other ways, because I got to learn programming, I got to learn software designing, things like that, like basic computer science things. That also helped me, because by the time I got to my masters, I already knew basics of programming. It can be a different language, like the languages we use during our studies were different than the ones we use right now. But once you know the principles of the programming, then it's easy to like switch between languages. So that's one thing that helped me. Um, on the physics side, um, even though like I don't get to work at like a really core level of simulation running, like setting up simulations, equations, things like that. When I'm working on something, I have this idea. Okay, like this is how a simulation works. So you need a like a starting state, and you evolve the system on each single frame, and it takes like a while to get to a frame, and why does it happening. So how a simulation gets set up, things like that. So having that knowledge, having that experience of like learning about computer simulations, things like that, learning about physics, gives me like insights into into how they are established in a CGI environment or like a production environment.
That makes a whole lot of sense. And along the same lines, I believe I saw that in effect also when I watched your short film Sentience, which was, I think, your master's project. And it was very, very nice. I mean, it's a battle between fire and water. I don't know if this is publicly available for people to watch. I went down the rabbit hole and somehow discovered it, I guess. But it was done really nicely. And could you tell us a little bit more about this 3-minute animation short film?
Yeah, yeah. That's the movie is available in Vimeo, so anyone can watch that. So the idea I had at the time is that I'm very interested in how like natural phenomenon works and how things like fire, water, those things behave. What are their like characteristics, things like that. So the idea I was investigating in the movie is that I have I have like we have in movies in animation now in VFX we have seen that elements are being used in different way. Like we have seen fires, big fires, small fires. We have seen water in different forms here and there. But what I wanted to investigate is like, can I make characters out of natural phenomena? And and then what I want to do with that is usually mostly in animation, when we want to make a character out of something, we usually design it with a humanoid, like we call it like anthropomorphic form, right? We have eyes and nose and like the usual human features. What I wanted to do is see if I can take an element and use its own characteristic. For example, like if I take fire, fire has color, fire has form, fire has heat, fire has motion, things like that. Um, Use those inherent properties to show emotion, show interaction. So if fire is angry, how can I show that? If fire is happy, how can I show that? If fire wants to interact with some other character or some other element in the environment, how can I show that without pushing it to like an anthropomorphic form, with just keeping it within the naturally observant form, or for naturally observing color, things like that. So that's the main idea. So that's how I developed this story and developed these two characters, like the fire character and the water character. So I try to show like their interactions, their expressions to things like color, form, size, things like that. And yeah, so that like I studied like multiple cases, like animations that I've done before, like live action movies that have used fire and water to show different things, and how color is used. Like so each individual property that I can separate out, like things like color, form, size, all of that I then studied separately. Like what does it mean to be a big fire? What does it mean to be a small fire? Things like that. How do we perceive a big fire and a small fire? What's the difference? Things like that. So that's how I developed those characters.
So basically, you observed nature as it was, like, you referenced quite a lot before you actually went about animating this short film. And I think that's something most animators also do. They go out into the field, they observe quite a lot, because like although we watch something and it, we have this tendency to immediately catch on when something just doesn't look right, although we might not be able to articulate why that is. So I guess it's inherently built into us as well. So I guess the job when it comes to animation as a whole is to kind of express that as realistically as you can, whilst maintaining a certain level of suspension of disbelief, especially when it comes to anthropomorphic characters like you mentioned. And at the same time, this watching your short film kind of reminded me of Elemental. I don't know if you had a chance to watch that.
Not yet, but it's in my bucket list. I'll watch it soon.
Gotcha. Yeah. So, the DreamWorks Ingenuity Award. Talk to me a bit about this. How did you end up winning it?
So the story
And
behind.
congratulations on that. I never got to congratulate you. It's so proud of you, man.
Thank you. So that is an annual event. Each year, I think from what I got to know, each production department in the feature film division gets to propose like one person from their department to be awarded the Ingenuity Award. And usually what happens is like the department supervisors get together and they propose names and they go back and forth between like what did each person do and why should he or she get it. So things like that. So this discussion goes for some time, and then they come up with one name per the department. So altogether, there were like I think 18 recipients from like different departments, and the department that I work in, which is the technical director department, I was nominated for this year, and it was like uh, until I got until I was informed, I didn't know anything about it. That it at least like I was being considered. Like it was quite surprising to me when I got the email saying you have been nominated for so and so. So I was happy because I have seen that award being given to like in past years to like TDs, other artists. Like they were like so like what we call so awesome like because I have worked with some of those people like some TDs and some artists, and when I work with them I realize, okay, this is why this person was awarded this, because like he was so awesome to work with, like the way he thinks, way he approaches problems, way he creates things. These were like a next level thing. So when I received the news that I got that too, I thought to myself, look, like I was so happy, and I felt like now I know something. Like I'm proud of myself and proud of the work that I did for like those like 4.5 years.
No doubt, I guess it's also like a reassurance that you're on the right path, heading in the right direction.
Yes, that's true. Like I talk with my supervisors and the people I work with too, and they're saying like it's the same thing. It's for the work you have done, and it's nice to work with you, and it's recognition that you deserve. So I'm quite happy with that. I'm really proud.
It's always such a nice thing to see your work being appreciated. Like I was saying, we were talking about earlier, Junkyard Theory was kind of built to you know, cover all aspects of the filmmaking process, bring people from like the most niche and uncommon areas that people probably might not even have heard of. But everybody contributes to the overall success of a film, and to see your work being appreciated, it automatically encourages you, which is something that we, for the most part, lack over here in Sri Lanka. Having experience, you worked here and you worked out there in the States. Could you break down for me, like how both ends of the world differ when it comes to handling the creative fields?
Sure. Like I can say about my experience. Like back in this is like the time I worked in Sri Lanka was around 2010, 2012. That time. After that, I don't have much experience on how things are happening in Sri Lanka. But one of the main things that I can explain simply is like we um, we have this concept called the three uh, three goals of production. Like we illustrate this in a triangle. So we have three corners of the triangle, and on the three sides we mark like good, fast, and cheap. So the idea is that you can only target one of those. You can't have something that is good, something that is cheap, something that is fast. You have to pick one, and you have to be ready to compromise the other two. So I think that is an important concept to keep in mind. It doesn't mean like every single thing has to be like that. there are like off cases. There are cases that doesn't fit to that frame, but majority of the cases will fit to that frame. So I think we need my personal feeling is like we need to understand what we want to pick and what we want to compromise. If we try to do all three, then we're gonna fail in all three. If we try to manage that and see where we can benefit the most, then that will that will help a lot. That's like one difference that I feel when I try to compare like what my experience in Sri Lanka and what my experience here. Um, that's like one main thing. So the other thing is like the way we are thinking is that I personally had a I want to call it like moment of insight when I was doing my masters is that before that when I was in Sri Lanka, my personal goal or my personal journey that I thought I should learn is like technical side of software. I want to learn this software, I want to learn that software, I want to learn every single thing on this specific software, things like that. But later I realized that's not what animation is. Animation is the art form, and that's what you should learn. Technical skills, yes. I mean, animation is done with technology, so you have to learn the technology and whatever that comes with it. I'm not saying just forget the technology and study art. That's not the case. But the the fun part, the core of animation is the art form. Without knowing that, without investigating that, there is less gain that you can achieve just by learning the technical side or learning the software. For example, like when I was doing my masters, my professors that were my advisors back there, they I knew some on most cases I knew how to handle a software better than them, but they knew better animation than I did. So they can give advice to me just by looking at my final outcome. They can because they have more insight, they have more understanding on how animation, the art form works. They don't care like how it's made. Like if I say like I don't know how to make this in this specific software, they would say okay, find YouTube and find some source. Like it's up to us to learn how to do it in the software. They will instruct us, give advice on how it feel, how it looks, how it feels. So that difference, the understanding that there is a difference, took me like 1.5 years in my masters. That's when I realized, okay, this is what I want to learn. This is what I should learn in animation. So that's like one thing that I see between the way we think in Sri Lanka. I personally don't know what's the situation right now. This is what I used to think like back then and what I realized afterwards.
I really love the first analogy, the triangle, good, fast, and cheap. You can't have all three. And if you want to achieve all three, you lose. You'll not get any of that. And you should like focus on one and pick which you're going to compromise, because I think that problem still exists over here. You want something good, you want it fast, and you want it cheap as well, and you end up not achieving either one of these. It's sad to say that's pretty much the situation over here, even now. But it's really nice to see how you kind of framed the answer to that question, and I absolutely love that. So, for anybody who's looking at becoming a technical director, what are the specific skills that you would encourage them to learn? Like you said, understanding animation itself as an art form. I think that probably stands as the baseline, the foundation. What else would they need to focus
Um, being a technical director is like because I have seen technical directors come from like all sorts of backgrounds. Some from directly from computer science, some directly from art. So it's a mixed bag, but in a good way. Like you can have expertise in different areas and still work as a excuse me still work as a technical director. So for the main skill set, I would say like bit of programming. It doesn't have to be that you have to understand a programming language like in depth. What what it requires is that you understand like the concepts of programming, how a computer program works and what are the main structures, things like that. So that understanding will be really helpful. And also like bit of computer system knowledge. It doesn't mean that you have to troubleshoot, you have to go in and fix computers, but having that knowledge, okay, this is how a computer system works, this is how a network works, this is how a storage system works, gives you that background knowledge that you can then focus on to like troubleshooting your problems, things like that. And from animation wise, having like a overall understanding of like what's the usual animation pipeline. Like you go from modeling to texturing to animating, things like that. You don't have to have like in-depth knowledge of like any specific area, but having a overall understanding of the entire pipeline, like how rendering works, what happens in lighting, things like that, would certainly help. So it's like, um, you don't have to have like any in-depth knowledge of any specific area, but it's nice to have knowledge in like multiple areas that covers like a wide scope. That's how my view of the thing is.
Gotcha. And are there any transferable skills from different walks of life that have helped you in your career?
Uh, yeah, I mean, to to study animation, animation is a visual art, right? So anything that you have a visual on is a learning thing. So in terms of like studying the visual aspects, I would say like things like photography, whatever things like how like even motion capture and things like that. Because one thing I got to experience during my masters, because I worked as a motion capture GRA. We did like motion capture sessions with dancers, with actors, anything like so during those, what I get to observe is like how the human body moves, what each move means, like how you show emotion through motion, things like that. So like even things studying things like dance or acting also help, because like that's like the visual styling and motion that you can then incorporate into like animation. That's how like you learn, like that's how you know, okay, if I want to show this emotion, then how do I show it in a character, things like that. So anything that has a visual, any art form that has some sort of like visual aspects would certainly help. In terms of like technical side also, it's the same thing, like having the knowledge of like how a computer system work. It doesn't have to be like I said before, um, not like really deep knowledge on like all the enterprise level storage system. We don't have to know all of that, but knowing this is how things work certainly helps, because all that knowledge comes into you. You're gonna need all of that knowledge to like narrow down on issues, problem solve, develop new things. All of that will help.
That makes a whole lot of sense. Uh, Favorite production you've ever worked on?
Favorite production? I think I have to say Kung Fu Panda, because when I was a child, that was like one of my favorite movie sequels to watch. I was like so blown away by I think at that time we don't analyze movies like we do right now. Like right now we analyze it like the form, the art, the colors, and all of that. At that time it was like the feeling that we get. Like we can't express that, but we feel it. For some reason, I felt Kung Fu Panda very very much than most other movie sequels. So that was like in my heart, like the moment that I got to know, like few years back, the moment that I got to know we are making a Kung Fu Panda, I asked like my supervisors and my managers, like, can I work on that? Can I work on that? But luckily, I got the chance. So that is like very close to me. That's like very dear to me.
And I think that's the same production that you won the Ingenuity Award for as well. Yeah.
Yeah.
Man, that's fantastic to get to work on a project from a series that you admired since you were a kid, and to win an award where your work and efforts have been appreciated. I think you kind of reached the peak of it in a way. I'm sure there's like a whole lot of, you'd say there's a long way to climb, but you've done so much, having come all the way from Sri Lanka, settling down in the States, and I think yours is a truly inspirational story. So thank you so much for taking out, an hour of your time to come and chat with us over here. Truly means a lot.
Yeah, yeah, it's my pleasure. Like, thank you for inviting, and I'm happy to be here and share my knowledge. And anytime I get the opportunity to like talk about what I know, share my experience, share my path, that makes me really happy to share my experience.
Brilliant. What else can we expect from you? Final question. What can we expect from you down the line? Would you ever direct your own movie?
I haven't thought about anything yet. I feel like really comfortable with where I am right now. I still have a lot to learn, still have a lot to experience. So we'll see. I haven't planned like too much down the line as of yet. Um, yeah, so we'll see what the future holds.
Perfect. Wishing you all the best on your pod, and looking forward to having you on the show another time. Thank you so much for joining, Lakshika. Until next time, this is Junket Reports.